After weeks of attacks from Republicans and Democrats and angry questions from both the media and his supporters, President Obama just rewrote his fundamental health care promise to America. And wait until you hear the latest version. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. After mounting criticism over broken pledges and failed promises, President Obama stood before a room full of supporters in Washington, D.C. just a short time ago this evening. And instead of taking responsibility for his clearly broken promises, he decided to rewrite his oft-repeated, quote, guarantee that if you like your health care plan, you can keep it, period. Listen.
If you have or had one of these plans before the Affordable Care Act came into law, and you really liked that plan, what we said was you could keep it if it hasn't changed since the law was passed.
No, that's not what you said. That's not true. Again, that is not what he said. And again, there's been no attempt to acknowledge the earlier promises and the fact that they were not true. The only question remaining now is whether the original promises were lies or were mere misstatements. We told you last week that this administration knew, as far back as 2010, perhaps earlier, that millions of Americans could not keep their plans under Obamacare. We showed you the document. They knew. And today, a Wall Street Journal report suggests the White House in particular also knew, at the time the president was making this promise, that that promise was not true. It wouldn't hold for millions of people. The Journal quotes sources saying that those objections internally by some of the policy folks were overruled by the political folks. And so the president continued on with this promise again and again and again.
If you've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. If you like your doctor or health care provider, you can keep them. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period. No one will take it away, no matter what. If you like your health care plan, you can keep that too. If you like your doctor, you keep your doctor. If you like your current insurance, you keep that insurance, period. End of story.
Mark Thiessen is a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and a former speechwriter for President George W. Bush. Mark, you are the man to talk to because you've got intricate knowledge into how presidential speeches and comments are crafted and vetted. And the Journal reports today that, quote, some White House policy advisors' policy objected to the breadth of Mr. Obama's Keep Your Plan promise, but they were overruled by political aides. Your thoughts?
It's unbelievable. I mean, look, the president didn't say, if we like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan. He said, if you like your health care plan, you can keep it. And the fact is that they were told before, this was a premeditated lie. Before he said those words, they were told that the words were not true by the policy people, but the political people overruled it. Now, things like that don't just slip into presidential speeches. I ran the White House speechwriting shop, and there's something called a staffing process, where dozens of officials review every proposed presidential utterances. There's a fact-checking operation that goes through every word to make sure it is both accurate and defensible. And I know that we, as speechwriters, would often come up with things we'd wanted the president to say that were a great way to sell his policy. But if the fact-checkers or the policy people came to us and said, you can't say that, it's not true, out it went. In their case, the fact-checkers and policy people came to them and said, you can't say that, and they said it anyway.
The Journal reports that a former official added to the Journal that in the midst of a hard-fought political debate, quote, if you like your plan, you can probably keep it, is not a saleable point. And that, I mean, that's obvious, but it's shocking to think that the president explicitly misled millions of Americans about their health care, and their relationship with their doctors and their children's relationship with their doctors, knowing that it was untrue or having reason to understand that because it was more saleable to say it the way he did.
Yep, and on top of that, that after he started saying it and they started being concerned that this wasn't true, they actually went back and debated about whether or not they should go out and have him do some interviews to put some nuances onto the president's line. And they decided not to do it. And this is what the Journal says, because officials worried that delving into details such as the number of people who might lose their insurance could be confusing and would clutter the president's message. Clutter the president's message? The truth would clutter the president's message? They knew this was untrue. They debated internally whether or not to come clean and say it wasn't true and try and do this spin they're doing now a few years ago before the bill was passed. But the fact is, if they had done it then, the bill wouldn't have been passed.
That's the thing. As you've said many times, this promise went to the core of the health care law. Would this law have passed in the first place? By the way, it had no Republican support, and it has never had the majority support of the American people. Would it have passed if he went out there and just told the truth? Then we could have had that debate. We could have had a fair, honest debate about whether people wanted to sacrifice their relationships with their doctors and their families' relationships with their doctors so that we could help a pool of uninsured, or maybe was there a better way of helping those people?
That's exactly right. And look, they knew, because they keep going back and saying, well, we had this grandfathering provision in there, so obviously we wanted to let those people keep their plans, except they wrote the regulations so that most of the people wouldn't qualify for grandfathering. They intentionally needed these people to lose their insurance because they need 2 million people who are healthy to move into the exchanges to subsidize the poor.
The president does not see it that way, because here is a little bit more of what he said tonight on the subject of misleading and misinformation about the health care law. Listen.
It's nothing new to have a bunch of folks spreading fear and misinformation and confusion and cynicism about this law. We've been facing that for 4 years. We're used to that.
You call him out on broken promises, and that's the response, Mark.
Spreading misinformation. More than 24 times he said, if you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan no matter what. And he's accusing his critics of spreading misinformation. I mean, look, even his own supporters aren't buying the spin. The White House is completely isolated. The New York Times, one of the chief supporters of Obamacare, wrote an editorial this weekend, Mr. Obama clearly misspoke. Wow. So they're not even buying the spin, but he didn't misspeak. He lied.
That's the thing, and the ombudsman of the Times came out and called the paper on it, saying, misspoke, really? And apparently they admitted to their ombudsman that they could have said he just didn't tell the truth, which also would have been an accurate statement. Mark, thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Also breaking